welcome back to the kitchen. On today's video, I'm going to be teaching you a recipe for homemade egg noodles and also a quick skillet dinner that can be made really fast, like in 15 minutes, with these homemade egg noodles and use up a bunch of leftovers in your fridge. So the recipe is super adaptable and easy, and you can just use whatever you happen to have on hand. I'm a big fan of using what you have. So I have sped this video up so that we will not be here for 85 hours. Not that it took 85 hours, just that the whole process of kneading noodles can take a while. So in the bowl, I put 4 cups of semolina flour, 4 eggs, maybe a quarter cup of water, that is, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So the 4 cups, 4 eggs, the 4 cups of flour, the 4 eggs, and the tablespoon of or the teaspoon of salt is required. The water, it depends on how watery your eggs are. So I'm just giving you an idea of what you're looking for before you start adding water. It should be kind of this mealy texture in your mixer. And then once you have this mealy texture, you add water by the teaspoon or tablespoon until it starts to come together into a dough. Once it's together in a dough, you're going to take it out of the mixer and knead it by hand until you get a good stretchy texture. And I will show you the texture that I'm talking about here after I knead this for a little while. You can let your mixer do some of the kneading, but you're looking for a specific texture and the mixer doesn't know. So this is the sort of texture that you're looking for, where you can push it out on your counter like that with your palms and it's not tearing, it's just stretching. So that's the good stretchy texture that I'm looking for in my noodle dough. And that's just egg noodle dough. And so I'm going to let this then rest in an oiled container for about 20 or 30 minutes, just covered so it doesn't get dry. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to set up my mixer, or I'm going to set up the KitchenAid with the noodle attachment, the pasta attachment. And so I'm using the sheet roller here and also the fettuccine roller. This makes a big floury mess on your counter, so do not be surprised if you do this and you have flour everywhere. I have rolled out my noodles by hand. It is a huge pain in the butt to do that. So I got a pasta attachment for the KitchenAid. I do not do my doughs in my KitchenAid Artisan anymore because it just struggles with anything that's real heavy. So my husband got me the Angus Room mixer for doughs, and it's phenomenal. Like, best Valentine's Day present ever. I love this mixer so much. So the KitchenAid noodle attachments are very simple to use. All you do is you stretch that dough out and get it a little thinner than a ball. And then you will adjust the dial on the front of that sheet roller, the pasta sheet roller, and flour the dough. And you'll see here that the dough just kind of gets fed through. You don't want to yank the dough through. You don't want to feed it through too fast or through too slow. That just takes time to learn. And all I did there was fold the dough up on itself and then fold it over. And this process is called lamination. And it's just giving the dough extra strength. That's all that it's doing. So you'll notice every once in a while I dust some flour on the dough, and that's a feeling thing. When the dough feels like a little sticky coming out of the roller, I don't want to feed it back through the roller if it's sticky, or it will get caught up inside the roller. So I'm just lightly dusting it with flour. And then after you do that a few times, you don't even really have to dust it every time, just every couple of times. And then your roller, the pasta roller for the KitchenAid, has a dial with numbers on it. So every once in a while I'm stopping, I'm turning the dial up so that the roller gets thinner and thinner. And then once it gets to like an unmanageable size, I turn the dial, or I cut the dough in half, because I'm just not going to deal with like a 7-foot sheet of pasta. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. I'm cutting these down into noodles anyway, so they need to be a manageable noodle size. So this recipe can be frozen. I'm going to cook these fresh in a giant pile because we're going to go through it, and then we'll have several days of leftovers, which is always welcome. But this can be fresh cooked for about 5 minutes in a pot of salted boiling water. it can be dried. You just hang these for a few days until they are dried, and then you can store them for, 25 years in Mylar bags if you felt so inclined. If you're going to cook them, they don't take as long to boil as your store-bought dried noodles, so they really only need like 7 to 9 minutes to be al dente. And then if you're going to freeze them, which is my preferred method, I don't normally cook these fresh. I normally freeze them. For some reason, freezing noodles just changes the texture and makes them more snappy or something. I'm not really sure if I'm describing that well, but to freeze these, I just cut them down into strips using the fettuccine attachment, and then I heavily dust them in flour and put them on a baking sheet in little nests, and then I flash freeze them in my big freezer, like for a couple hours, just until the nests are frozen. And then I put those nests in a Ziploc bag, and then when I want pasta, we just take out a nest per person, and then we each have a serving size of pasta. And this just comes in super handy for quick lunches, fast weeknight dinners. This is just a very simple, easy thing to do. And it doesn't even take all that much time. Honestly, the thing that takes the longest time is swapping out these attachments. Because once you get on a roll with it, it's so quick. So like you'll see here, I'm going to feed these. I'm going to cut these in half again because they've gotten to, again, an unmanageable size. I'm going to dust them with flour, and then I'm going to feed them through the fettuccine attachment, and you'll see there how they're cut. And all I'm going to do is pull those out, and not like really pull, but then I'm going to heavy dust in flour so they don't stick to each other while they're while I'm waiting to do the rest of the sheets. So I cut a dough ball into 4 equal-ish parts, and I'm working with one part at a time. You don't want your pasta dough to dry out while you're working with it. It just becomes too unmanageable. So I cut it into 4 balls. Then I use one of the dough balls to roll out into sheets and then cut into fettuccine noodles. And while that's happening, the other dough balls are sitting covered there on the counter out of the camera view. But yeah, just keep them covered so they don't dry out. Dry dough is just a beast to work with. This is so much easier when it's nice and stretchy and has a good texture. So I'm going to show you here. I did those 4 sheets. Never mind. I guess I did 3 sheets. So I'm going to show you here pretty soon the nests that I created. And because I'm not freezing these or drying them, I'm just going to go ahead and put them straight off the sheet into the pot of water, which you'll see in a little bit here. So I'm just showing you what the nests kind of look like. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Here, I'm just kind of fluffing them a little bit, making sure that nothing's sticking. And so if you have them well floured, you can do a giant pile of noodles like this, and they will not stick to each other. So that's what I'm just showing you here. This is all fresh. That was the entire batch of 4 cups of flour. So you can see that very simple recipe makes many servings of pasta. I'm not really sure how many servings this was, but it was probably over 2 pounds. So however that much works out to be. So the recipe for the skillet is very, very simple. All you're going to do is take some onions and garlic, and if you don't like either of those, you can omit them. And you're going to saute those in some broth and butter with salt and pepper, and then you're going to add some type of liquid. I did maybe like 1 cup of chicken broth that I had canned a couple weeks back, and then like I don't know, a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. And I don't measure any of this. I'm just going by sight. So I'm just one of those people that does not like to measure stuff unless I'm baking. And then only then I'm measuring, just so that I'm not like wasting anything. So I just saute these until they're soft. I'm going to add in some chopped broccoli, some chopped fresh broccoli I had sitting in the fridge, and it was kind of wilty, so it was time to use it up. You could add any type of vegetable here. You could add carrots or Brussels sprouts, cabbage, zucchini, anything you have on hand. I have done this with corn and zucchini to make like a summer cream pasta. It is delicious. So there's just some pepper. And then I'm going to throw some heavy cream in here. Oh, basil. I had some basil in the bottom of the fridge that needed to be used up too. And some red pepper flakes. I was kind of heavy-handed there. Everybody thought it was a little spicy. I really liked it though. So I got this heavy cream from Azure Standard, and it is so heavy that the top quarter of it like becomes a solid when it's sitting in the fridge. So it's just kind of a pain to pour, but if I just remembered to shake it or give it a good stir beforehand, it would be fine. So I did take out some sour cream because I thought maybe I was going to need a little bit more cream and I didn't want to add heavy cream to it, but I ended up not needing it. What I did there was I used like half a cup of broth. I added a tablespoon of cornstarch. I didn't want to add a ton of cheese to this to get it to be that like Alfredo sauce sort of consistency, and not that this is an Alfredo sauce, but just a sauce that the noodles would grab. So I added like a tablespoon of cornstarch and cold broth, and then I stirred those in there until it started to thicken up. And then in go the noodles, and you'll see they're nice and stretchy. And then I'm just boiling those. You wait until the water, and you heavily salt your water. You want your water like ocean salty. You want it very salty. I use tongs in here to break up the noodles as they're cooking. And this seems to actually work the best for me. While I'm doing that, I'm just kind of stirring up those vegetables that were in the fridge. I legit just had half an onion and some leftovers in the fridge that I'm just throwing in there. Like this is leftover cooked bacon already. So this is so simple, and you can substitute basically anything. Cubed ham, beef strips, whatever you've got, chicken tenders, whatever you want, you can throw in here, and you can just variate this. And we do this meal like once every other week because it's just a one pot, or it's a one skillet meal, other than having to boil the noodles. So here I'm just taking the noodles out. You saw how fast those cooked. It was, I swear, maybe like 5 to 7 minutes tops, and then they were perfectly snappy. Do not boil your fresh noodles to mush. You will hate them that way. So they need way less time than box noodles. So here I'm just going to plate real quick and show you how delicious it turned out. Anyhow, I hope this was an interesting video and you learned something. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate all of the support in the comments. Love ya. Bye-bye.